And all he's done for me. How he came to set mankind free. I must tell it. Oh, I've got to tell it. Everywhere. I go. I must tell of the goodness of Christ. Oh, and all he's done for me. I must tell he was born. How he came to set mankind free, free. No place for his head. Oh, I got to tell thee. Gotta make sure you know, so I gotta tell thee. Tell it everywhere I go. Tell of his son and all that he's done. Tell how he came to show us that love is the key. Love is the key. For love was truly set you free. I am you and you are me. That's what he came to tell me, tell me. Oh, just love one another, yeah. That's what we got to do, got to tell you. How he came to set mankind free, mankind free. No place for his head. Oh, tell it, I got to tell it. Oh, I just want to make sure you know I tell it. Gotta tell it everywhere I go. Tell it on the mountain, mountain top, everywhere I go. I'll tell it, everywhere I go. On the top of the mountain, in the valley low. Oh, I'll tell it, I got to tell it, everywhere I go. Oh, tell it on the mountain, in the valley low. I got to tell it, make sure you know it, tell it, everywhere, everywhere I go. Gotta tell it on the mountain, everywhere I go. Gonna tell it, make sure you know I gotta tell it. Oh, we just love one another. Oh, we help to set this world free when we love it. Oh, tell it. Oh, I got to tell it now. Tell it on the mountain. Tell it. Got to tell it. Make sure you know I gotta tell it now. Oh, everywhere I go. Oh, yeah. And all is done for me. tell it everywhere I go. You, me, and I, and you. Oh, that's what it came to tell me. Oh, thank you, God. I got to tell it. Oh, yes. Love, 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 love one another. Oh, tell it. I got to tell it everywhere. For me and for you, to set mankind, set us all free. There's no place for withheld. Oh, I must tell it. Oh, I've got to tell it everywhere. Everywhere I go, tell it on the mountain. Beloved ones. Before I begin my message for this morning, as I was meditating, Spirit said we should take all of these statements and declarations and affirmations and knowledge and vision of truth, and we'll put them together, and not only put them on our wall, but we will put them together perhaps in a little booklet form so that we can read them, give them to our friends, but really somehow make an effort that, you know, each day we declare something of the truth for our world and for our own lives, as a matter of fact. So that's what just came, so we'll be doing that. So I bet you next week everybody's going to want to get their card in, but please know that I see it as a work, and I'm not sure where Spirit is taking us, but I have a feeling that it will be someplace good and wonderful. So turn to your neighbor and tell them, I behold the Christ in you. I behold the Christ in you. Here, that life of God I see. Thank you. I can see a great peace too. I can see you whole and free. Yes, I behold the Christ in you. It's such a wonderful concept to be able to behold. And we need that sometimes, because sometimes we can't see past what's showing up, right? It becomes a challenge. And so if we could remember, let me behold what is behind what has appeared. What lies underneath the appearance of an individual. Because all that we are showing is not all that we are. And sometimes we forget that, even for ourselves, but especially when we look upon the sacred other. You know, we have a tendency to notice their flaws or their inconsistencies or whatever, and we begin to judge, and we begin to then box them in and define them as being that. That's who they are. And there's always more to the soul. So when we practice beholding the Christ, it helps us to remember that there's something great within everyone. There's something that lies within the soul of every man, woman, and child that is so magnificent. It's glorious. It's God-filled and God-ordained. And so to remember that when we encounter each other is such a beautiful thing. So we continue with our series on Advent, and Advent, as you all know, simply means the arrival. It's the preparation time, the 4 weeks before Christmas. And it is to prepare heart and mind for the sacred birth of the Christ in us. And so we work with certain concepts, we work with our consciousness so that we might be ready to truly bring light to the world, that we might be ready to truly bring our Christed selves, into our lives so that when you see me, it's easy for you to see the Christ as opposed to my humanity and my human flaws and foibles, but that you can behold something beautiful and magnificent. Now, last week we started as the first week, but actually last week was the second week of Advent. I wasn't sure whether I was going to do an Advent series, and so I started last week. So last week was actually the second week of Advent. So we're going to do a little catch up. We started late. Today, even though we'll talk about the second theme, I'm going to double down next week, and we'll do joy and love together, because I think they go together anyway, so that'll be fine. Because can you believe it? After that, it is Christmas. I'm like, whoa, this year's just flown by. But for now, we're going to focus on peace, the second theme of Advent. We have hope, being a force for good, and now we know that there is peace. Peace, peace, peace. And as I was thinking, we have to admit that this is not only a hot topic, peace, right? But it's definitely something that is needed for our world today. We need hope, but Lord knows we need peace. In fact, there's always talk about world peace. World peace. Even in the scriptures and the Bible, the biblical declaration for the advent or the arrival of Christ was that the angels said, peace on earth and goodwill, God's will towards all men. So peace was even heralded at that time and declared. So we know that there's something about this whole concept that is so vital and important. Peace on earth. They didn't say, the heavenly host didn't say, well, here's the Christ, the Son. It said peace on earth. Goodwill towards men, towards women. And so that tells us that we, as we give birth to this wondrous presence and energy and spirit and consciousness within us, that we must also be willing to give birth to peace that lies within us. Peace. The scripture also talks about 1,000 years of peace. It comes at the end of the Bible. And it's spoken of us before we get to the 1,000 years of peace. There's going to be Armageddon and a whole bunch of mess. And I'm not sure if we're not in that whole bunch of mess right now. But that the end result of even all that turmoil and all that confusion, all that warring sense of energy, there's peace. The result of that is peace. We think about years ago how countries who were in opposition to one another and at war with one another, they were always trying to engage in peace talks. We don't hear so much about peace talks at this point in time, but years ago the diplomacy, the approach was to try to engage countries in peace talks, right? And they would always start off until something broke down. And then there would be a need for more peace tactics to get everybody back to the table again. But at least people were willing to come to the table. At least there was an approach to peace, whether it was talking about it or seeing if these countries or people could iron out their differences. We live in a different world right now where peace talks are not even on the table. So there's something then, if we can't bring countries together, because it's not necessarily countries now, it's moved down into individuals. And so this is very important for us to understand, because even though it has moved and shifted from countries to individuals, likely that also means that we as individuals must now what? Take it out. So you can't wait for the country to bring peace. You can't wait so we as individuals must also bring forth this peace. Because peace is not necessarily a tactic, it's not a goal, it's a vibration, it's a way of being, and it is an effect or result of high consciousness. Peace is a result of high consciousness, and it comes from within. It's a quality of the divine, it's a quality of God that lies within the soul. And here's the key, each of us must find it for ourselves. You say, I'd love to be able to give you some peace. I'd love to be able to give you some peace of mind, but it doesn't work that way. Right? I can't give you peace, just like neither can I disturb your peace. Now, sometimes we think, well, if it wasn't for Mary or Joe or something, disturbing my peace. We're going to talk about why that is not the case in a minute. But this whole concept of peace, I love our closing song, because the title of our closing song is Let There Be Peace on Earth. And let it begin with who? With me. Now, that's the title, and that's the appropriate word. Somewhere along the line, my predecessor changed the words to love. Let there be love on earth. And we sing that, but if you go to any of the Unity Church, they're going to sing Let There Be Peace, because that's the appropriate title and words for the song. Let there be peace on earth, and what? Let it begin with me. Now, I don't know if the author of that song was a metaphysician or not, but they truly, truly have understood from whence peace comes. It's an inside expression, right? It's a matter of consciousness. You can't get it out here. You can't find it out here. Just like happiness, all these things that we're searching for, you cannot find it out here. So if there's to be an semblance of peace on earth, it must begin with the individual. Right? And then move from the individual outward to the collective, to the greater. And if we cannot master peace within ourselves, then how can we bring peace upon the earth? If we cannot engender peace within our relationships, within our families, with our colleagues and our neighbors and our friends, and even the strangers and passerbys on the street, if we cannot engender peace with them, then how can we have peace on earth? We cannot. It isn't some nebulous concept that somehow somebody else is going to bring the peace. It doesn't work that way. You are the only one who can bring peace to your life and affairs. You are it. And the moment that you look for someone else or something else to bring it, you set yourself up. It's a setup. You set yourself up for conflict and disappointment, because if I think you got my peace, and one day you show me something other than peace, then I'm disturbed, right? See, so I get set up for conflict or disappointment or judgments or non-acceptance or inharmony or resistance. All of those things just set me up for a disturbance in the spirit and the soul. Turn to somebody and tell them it's a setup. It's a setup. If I think you have my happiness, that's a setup, right? If I think that job that I was looking for was somehow going to bring me peace and happiness, it's a setup. If I think somehow if my wife or husband could just do it a little differently, and then we'd have peace in the household, it's a setup. If my children would just, or maybe when my children grow up and leave the house, there'd be more peace. That's a setup. Right? They may leave the house, but from what I understand, they never go away. There's always some need, something, you're always the parent. It's a setup, friends. And so we are the only ones, and since we are the only ones that can bring peace to our own selves, we need to take a look at some of the things that might disturb our peace. And so I wanted to start with this notion. There's one notion that I think that's in our consciousness and in our psyche that really is the biggest setup of all for disturbance of peace. And that is this notion of right and wrong. That we have a notion of right and wrong, and I'm not talking about behavioral standards or moral standards of what is appropriate and not appropriate, but I'm talking about this concept of there's right and wrong for me and for you, whatever. And that when we connect or we measure our sense of being to what we think is right and what we think is wrong, when we begin to then feel validated by when we're right and invalidated when we think that others might think we're wrong, then that's a setup. Because in that concept, the ego will never allow us to be wrong. If my sense of validation, of sense of self is tied into whether you think I'm right or wrong, then I'm never going to be wrong. Because the ego's going to want to preserve my sense of self, right? And so this whole concept of right, and a lot of it is unconscious. We need to look at how often I make you wrong to make me right, or if I think I'm right, then that means I must make you wrong if you disagree with me. But it's a concept that we have to get into our head, this whole thing that there is no necessarily right or wrong. So not only does this disturb our inner peace and it disturbs our life, but it negatively affects our relationships and our interactions with others. When we adopt this unconscious notion of right and wrong, and it's because we will fight to be right. If my sense of being right is somehow connected to my sense of being, right, then I'm going to defend my being. I'm going to defend my rightness too, right? I'm going to do that. So we will fight to be right. We'll then take our positions, we will take our perspectives, we'll take our stance, and we'll hold to them very, very tightly because we believe, mistakenly or not, but we believe that they represent us. We believe that they define us. We believe that they have something to do with our identity. You see, so we find ourselves saying something like, well, these are my ideas. These are my thoughts. These are my feelings. This is what I stand for. This is what I believe. This is where I'm coming from. And any challenge to that may feel quite threatening. And it may feel as if it's an attack on my very personhood, my very beinghood. Which is why people, get very upset and begin to argue when there's simply just an opposing thought, opinion, idea. Because we attach that thought, that opinion, that idea, that perspective to our sense of being. This is who I am. No, it may be something that you think, something that you're feeling, but thoughts change, feelings change, perspectives change. And when you have identified yourself as being that, you give yourself no room to grow either, right? Because you're stuck. Now, let's just say, well, this is who I am now. This is what I feel now. And that might work if you put that qualifier in there. So this whole thing about inner peace has nothing to do with being right or wrong. It's not attached to that. It's not derived from an ideology or a philosophy or a perspective, or anything that's actually changing and temporal. You can't get peace from that. It's a state of being. And it is a consciousness that cannot be moved from some outside force or some outside condition or situation or circumstance. It's something that lies deep within the soul. And it comes from God. It's the very essence and presence of God. It is the Spirit of God within us. And when we're able to touch that presence within us, what happens is we begin to be moved into alignment. Once we recognize that peace is not found out here, it's not through situations, circumstances, it's not even through beliefs, it's not anything that I attach my sense of self to, but peace is a state of being that comes from God. And when I'm able to go deep within and touch that, then things begin, beyond right or wrong, things begin to move into alignment. And I have the ability at that point to be able to accept what is, not to necessarily change from the outside, because I'm touching that which is changeless on the inside, right? Peace is a changeless entity. It doesn't change because this happened or that happened. See, any quality of God, this is how you know you're tapped into it. If you think you lose your peace, you never had it. You didn't touch it. Because peace is of God and it's changeless. Or if you think, well, I don't have any more joy, somebody stole my joy. No, people can't steal your joy. If you're not feeling joy, you didn't have it. You didn't touch it. Right? Or they took my love. No. These qualities of being have nothing to do with any kind of outside situation or circumstance. They are of God. And they are changeless, which is why we can rely upon them. And if we can move inside to touch them, it transforms every situation and circumstance and condition of our lives, not the other way around. And so if, we want to recognize then it's about being in touch with the divine. So we know that God is present. My minister, who was Eric Butterworth, and I loved Eric, and he was a fabulous teacher and instrument, but he used to say that if you're disturbed, it's because you are disturbable. And I tried to understand that. I was like, what is he talking about if you're disturbed, that you're disturbable? Well, if you're disturbed, it's because you're disturbable. Right? You haven't found that place yet where nothing in the outer. There's an old unity statement that says there's nothing that can disturb the calm peace of my soul. I have that one in my office. And sometimes I forget that. There's a peace that lies within the soul where nothing can touch it. Because again, it is of God. And so when we're not feeling peace, it's because we're not touching that still place within us. So how do we get to be undisturbable? And by that, when I say to be undisturbable, I don't mean be uncaring, because some people, I'm not talking about being unconcerned. The house is on fire while I'm undisturbable. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about being indifferent. Right? Because when you're in tune, you will hear, get up, get out of the house. You will take right action. See? And so it doesn't mean that you don't move, but you're not moving. The action you take, the things that you do won't be frantic. They won't be filled with confusion. They'll come from a measure of peace and clarity. You'll do what is yours to do. You'll be so present. So what's this whole concept of what does it take to be undisturbable? Well, what I think it means being able to transcend the world of effects and go beyond to the source. And from that place, you put forth a higher cause. Now, I want to say that again. So to actually enter in or to be in that undisturbable state or place, it means to transcend the world of effects, see, and go, which means whatever's happening out here, that's the effects. It's all right. But to go beyond that, to transcend that and get back to the source. And from that place or seeing the source, you put forth a higher cause. We all operate under the law of cause and effect. There's a cause for every effect, but there's a divine cause. And sometimes we forget and we get entangled in the effects, right? And I'm telling you right now that peace is not possible when we're entangled in the effects. The effects of who said what, who did what, Who's responsible for what? The effects of blame or shame or accusing or accusations or all that is effects. And you will never come to a place of peace if you're focused on that. So when you have that experience, when the appearance of effects have shown up in your life, your task is to become still once again and get a new cause. Not to worry about who caused what out here, but touch divine cause within your being. And when you get into that place, you will then put forth a greater effect. You understand what I'm saying? A peace. So we're working, how do we take ourselves from the entanglement of effects? Because once you get into effects, you get into attack and defend. And once you're in the attack and defend mode, the peace is out the window. You know what I'm saying? It's blame or whatever. So we're coming from a different place. And by simply being willing to see what is there, I'm not saying you don't notice the effects. If the house is on fire, that's a big effect. Deal with it. But I'm saying is we simply see what is there, but without judgment, without the need to make it right or wrong. Well, who started this fire? Who cares? Get out, right? You know, and even after you get out, when everything's calmed down, then you want to go back to blame. Well, who did? Matters not. So to be able to just see without judgment, without the need to make it right or wrong, and to be able to just simply go within and to go beyond our limited sense of self, beyond our individual needs and our individual wants, and to simply begin to practice dwelling in the presence so that that which is for the highest good of all concerned can come forth. It takes practice. So we might want to begin by practice asking whenever we are in a situation of effects, what is needed here? And once you begin to practice asking what is needed here, you're going to see that the call is always for you to come up a little higher. The need is always going to be for you to be a little bit more patient, more compassionate, more understanding, kinder, more loving, more tolerant, whatever, more of God's qualities of being. And even as I was writing that, I was saying, yikes, I don't want to be more. I simply want the other people to change. Right? I don't want to be more patient. I have so much patience. I've been patient with them. I'm tired of, no, you're asking me to be more? I don't want to be more. And this is our humanity, right? But that's what the call always is. And so even if you want them to change, the secret is people or things or situations and circumstances will never change until you do. They will never change until you do. They won't, right? And so the person that plucks your last nerve is going to pluck your last nerve until you find that place within you where you no longer allow that to take place. And so we all have a few people that, they are our major projects. They remind us of the work we still have yet to do, right? They remind us of the work. And so that's okay because it all begins with you. When you are disturbed, we're going to learn to practice looking within to find out why am I disturbable so that I can clearly see my part in it. Here's the thing. I want you to begin to notice a few things. I want you to notice when you're defensive. I want you to notice when you begin justifying your position, your views, your desires, your wants. I want you to begin to actually notice when you are making the other person wrong, even when you know you are right. I want you to notice when you are feeling right. I want you to notice when you are judging. I want you to notice when you feel small. I want you to notice when you feel insecure. See, we have to bring conscious awareness to what's happening inside of ourselves. I want you to notice when you have allowed yourself to move into a state of comparison, because comparison leads to no good thing. Either you're going to feel superior to somebody or you're going to feel inferior to somebody. But the mind and the ego loves to compare. I'm not measuring up. Or they're not measuring. They're too much or too little or whatever. The peace is disturbed. I want you to notice all of these things within yourself. When you feel powerless, when you feel disturbed, when you can't get beyond your own self. There is a peace that passes all understanding, the Bible says. Because there'll be some things you just will not and cannot understand. But there's a peace that enables you to transcend that lack of understanding. There's some things happening in the world I don't understand. But there's a peace that I must find within me that will pass even that, my lack of understanding. That if I could touch that, will bring forth something good that can heal the world or the situation or the circumstance. There's a peace which passes all understanding, meaning it's beyond all reason, it's beyond all logic, it's beyond all points of view, it's beyond all political positions, it's beyond all differences. It lies within the heart and soul, and we have to be willing to find it in ourselves, which means we must even be willing to transcend our very sense of self. Because that's so strong, we want to defend that to no end. And it's when I can let myself go that I might be able to embrace yourself. But if I have to defend myself, if I'm so full of myself, I can't see yourself. I can't touch yourself. So sometimes we got to let go of self, because even Jesus said, it's when you are willing to lose yourself that you're going to find yourself. You've got to be willing. So we're at a wonderful place, because when we can let go, God then begins to move in us and we become channels and vessels. God uses us then in a mighty and a wondrous way when we can become clear. The source will begin to manifest through us, in us, and through the situations and circumstances in this world, bringing about a new world order. We're in a fabulous time, a powerful time of transformation. This is wonderful. We are creating. We have the ability to create peace on earth, but it will only happen if we create peace within ourselves. So the assignment for next week, should you choose to accept, will be this. And I wanted to think about this. I said, okay, because this whole concept of peace, your assignment is not only to write out, but I want you to begin to live out that which you are willing to do to bring peace to your relationships. What are you willing to do to bring peace to your relationships? You might have to give up some things, I don't know. Not going to go signifying. But what are you willing to do to bring peace to your relationships? Okay? Because this is going to cause you to move beyond your sense of self. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. With me. So, beloved ones, let's be peace. Not even be peaceful, let's simply be peace. Blessings and namaste. Blessings and namaste. Thank you.